Hello, everybody. Poncianinho speaking here. Today is the 6th of July, 2021. I've decided to change the format slightly. I do classes where you can see what I was teaching that day. I'm communicating with the students, and I think it can be quite interesting for you to see, if you're not actually practicing with me, to see what people are practicing, to see what is the idea behind the class. And hopefully, if you are someone who has been following the classes, whether you are physically practicing or not, perhaps you've been inspired by the classes, or you're just accumulating some knowledge, some information. We never know really, in case you're not practicing physically, but you want to. I think you shouldn't feel perhaps bad or even guilty if you are just watching a class, because this is all information. It's going to pay off somewhere. Perhaps this information or the inspiration that you get will eventually bring you to a very long-lasting phase of practice. So I just want to start by saying that, because I think that the practice matters. You have to put in the hours. I'm not here suggesting that, if you want to if you want to get to a certain level of skill, just watching the classes will be enough. Of course not. After all, you're watching us practicing. So I think at some stage you just have to get yourself to move. But depend of the variant, maybe you are somewhere that at the moment you can't really practice, or you don't want to practice without a teacher next to you to support and to guide you, which is something that I advise everybody to follow and to find. Find your teachers there, find your local capoeira school, and get the guidance that you want. But I just want to start by saying this, that even just listening and watching, it's a fantastic work. Even your body is reacting to this in a very positive way. So I've decided to combine the two worlds today, the visual and the words, the spoken word. This week we're working on Rasteira. Now, Rasteira is, of course, a really important movement. I quite often joke with my students that I think almost everything I say, I begin by saying, this is an important movement. But they don't all fall under the same kind of importance. Some do for different reasons. I very much like to compare capoeira to a garden. I think capoeira is a garden, in a sense where you have different flowers, and it's about the composition of the garden. Some flowers you can just plant the seed and they kind of grow by themselves with very little, just all the basics. You just need the basics. You just need sun and the occasional rain, and the flower will grow and will be a beautiful flower or whatever. Others, they need a little bit more work. They might need a little bit of work against some pests or against some flowers around that try to stop the growth of the flower. So some flowers need more attention, constant attention. They're more fragile. They may be fragile but beautiful and worthwhile, of course. Other flowers are beautiful, but they're also quite tough. And I think you get the picture. I don't have to go around the garden. But I like this image of the garden because it just shows us how, if we really want to cultivate a beautiful garden, we must take care of the flowers and understand that they they all have their costs. Some are going to be easier, some are going to be a little bit harder. And perhaps there are some flowers that are essential, kind of as if to say, for this kind of garden, you must have this kind of flower. And as if that flower represents that type of garden. And I think Rasteira is obviously one of those. Rasteira is iconic, it's beautiful, it's dangerous, it's extremely good for your practice, for your body, for your fitness. There's so much about Rasteira that can be on our everyday practice. Now, this week, I think this podcast, or I don't even know what this is. Is it a podcast? Because there will be video in the background playing. So I'm not quite sure what this really is. But I think this class, they'll probably have 2 or 3 parts. There's so much to talk, so much to be inspired by this wonderful movement. You probably see that a lot of what I'm going to be doing here doesn't necessarily start with Rasteira, as in a textbooks. This is where we do Rasteira, this is how I put my hand on the floor, this is how I sweep the leg. But I just want to bring your attention to 2 parts of this sequence. One is where I'm building to the Rasteira from a standing posture, which is a kick, which is the armada, the standing spinning kick. And then there is a natural descent to it. I do an armada and then I go into a esquiva. I use my hands so much like a flowy ribbon-like movement. Then I get to a negativa, and this is where things start to get a little more relevant for the specific point of Rasteira. Because from the negativa, I really must switch my leg. And there's a work of switching leg in order to create a momentum for the leg to expand and to sweep. Now, my first Rasteira is done very much what in the format of what Rasteira really is a sweep. And I use as a sweep and I turn around and the game continue. However, the second Rasteira, which will also follow from a armada, also follow from a spinning kick, but it goes to the floor more suddenly. And why does it go to the floor more suddenly? Because the Rasteira is then used as a momentum to a chapéu de couro or to an S dobrado. So now here we see a Rasteira being done in 2 ways. One is to sweep, as if the real meaning of the movement, and another is to create a momentum. And you can do that. This is precisely what makes capoeira, well, it's one of the things that make capoeira so interesting, is the fact that movements have different purpose. And sometimes they even look like they contradict each other, the purpose of the movement. They don't. But it's something that can be so strong and tough and sharp and can have some consequences, because obviously you can knock someone over. So you've got to think about not just how, but when and why you want to do the movement. And other times, the movement becomes soft and smooth and flowy, and it generates a beautiful movement at the end. So there you see that how one movement can have different purpose. And that's interesting, because also brings us back to the idea of feinting. Also bring us back to the idea of the other person, the other player, just doesn't know when a movement is just a flowy, dancey, beautiful, or when it can be a sharp and decisive moment in the game. And to create that drama, to invest in that texture, and to make a mastery of it, it's a really delicious part of your training. The other thing you see is how a Rasteira can generate so much momentum. Obviously, it's a momentum-based movement. Now, I think pretty much every movement in capoeira, you can take most of the momentum and create something else with it. Apart from some, of course. you're going to need a minimum amount of momentum to a backflip. No matter how well trained and how incredible you are, there is a point where your body flips backwards, and that requires a certain amount of force for your body to tumble and you don't just fall on your head. Anyone who messes too much with a momentum on a backflip, on a forward somersault, knows you pay a price for it. There is a certain physical law there happening. However, most of the movements in capoeira, they can be changed. The tempo can change, the effort of the movement can change, and they can be changed for different reasons. So perhaps this could be also an inspirational podcast to raise consciousness on how movements have different purpose. And then obviously it's our job to study and to work with it and to master and understand that. Otherwise, what I think a lot of people may do is they just stay in the very first impression of the movement. And that's an important part. Perhaps if you are a beginner, this may all sound very complicated and very intricate. And you just need to learn A, B, C and how you do them. But as you become more advanced and as you play people that are understanding this process, then the game becomes really interesting when you can understand the different purpose of the movement. It may all depart from Ginga again, but when you are in the middle of a game, 5 minutes in, or 10 minutes in the game, some of you might be thinking 10 minutes in, but yes, when not just at the very beginning of the game, but once you start to warm up more, you want to be able to use this kind of cards. Can you just imagine a game where everything is delivering textbook movements from beginning to end? And imagine how much it will lack in your creative ability, theatrical expression, ability to communicate, ability to challenge each other. Otherwise, your game becomes just a game of the fastest or the strongest. We go back into that loop of muscle power. We are obviously talking about mental power combined with your body. But it's also beyond that, because we're also talking about creativity, we're talking about flourishing, we're talking about hiding ideas, delivering at the right moment, holding back the tension of the kick. So all of this will play an important part for your movement. So I want you to watch this class, and I want you to watch how I transform. And if you can stay all the way to the end, then you're also going to see how I make the very last part of this video. I change the sequence and I start to add more advanced movements. The kick here, then we go here into esquiva. Yes, ginga. Boom, ta, ta, ka, boom, ba, boom, ba, boom, boom, ba. Boom, ba, boom. Yeah, so I think this step, I think this step here, guys, is about your ability to come back to the game. So, boom, dois, três. That's what this step symbolizes.
Now when we get to this negativa, now we need to be very careful here. A common mistake that beginners do is to not switch the leg enough. So I really need to think of switching. So when I'm here, I need to switch the leg so I can pull. Now we are back into this work here. You see what I mean? So we really need to switch the leg here. Switch the leg here. See how I'm stretching the body? Now I can pull. Yes? Can we stay on this hand as we come back? So we finish like this. Okay, let's try here. We go. Bip, bip, bip. Here. Then I go 1, 2, 3. So we go. Boom. Now here, switch leg for that rasteira. Now what you need to think here, you go back and you need to think of AU. That's it. AU, low on the ground. So I'm going. So if I make this just about the physicality, then just the physicality is bum, 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 that's fine. But now I can change a little bit. As soon as I look at you more, it's like, where? Okay, oh, I got you. Oh. See what I mean? Yeah, so then I've got it. Look now, look. 1, 2, 3. I want you to do as high as you can. As high as you can. 1. What am I doing? Sorry. Here. 1, 2. As high as you can. Yeah. So it goes. Behind. Push. Behind. Push. The first arm out. One more here. And then I fell, I went behind, then I turned around here.